Yes, it was something of a self-exposure, but I couldn't resist. 30 minutes on the Concept C2 rowing machine, then another half hour on the treadmill. That's how I've been working out for the past 9 months, changing only the music. I didn't own a smartphone, but I had an old MP3 player filled with anything I could find to drown out the anger. Well, I suppose I should say to drown out the pain, but each day the anger seemed to swell, overshadowing any pain I felt. My mind conjured up scenarios of revenge as heavy metal blasted in my ears, obscuring the reality around me. Both exercise routines were almost robotic, requiring no conscious thought or focus. For 1 hour each day, I drifted in a self-induced trance, consumed by fury over my wife's betrayal. After a quick shower at the gym, I embarked on my 3-mile walk to work. Driving would have been more practical, but I found solace in the therapeutic nature of walking. It typically took me 58 minutes, sometimes a bit longer if the weather was unfavorable. It wasn't a brisk pace, but it kept my heart rate up. After work, I leisurely walked the 2 miles back home. Weekends disrupted my routine, but I filled the time by tackling extra chores around the house. I spent more hours mowing, pruning, and edging. Neglected tasks suddenly demanded attention. Painting and caulking became my new focus, serving as ways to occupy my time. My MP3 player was my constant companion through it all. I made a comfortable living as a Volvo mechanic, specializing in commercial diesel applications. I kept my certifications up to date, and the money was enough to put both my daughters through college. Instead of burdening them with student loans, we opted for a second mortgage to cover tuition costs. My marital issues stemmed from a seemingly innocuous source: music. My wife, Rachel, adored classical music, a genre I couldn't stand. For her sake, I tried for years to embrace it, but it never clicked. Having different musical tastes shouldn't have been enough to tear apart a marriage, but Rachel took it further. She found companionship with others who shared her musical passion, joining local musical groups and associations. Concert trips became routine, and she signed up for as many as she could, never once inviting me along. When these outings turned into overnight stays, I began to grow suspicious. Kalev Jurison, a pianist who taught at the local college and performed with various orchestras, was the object of Rachel's infatuation. She kept her feelings hidden for a while, but it wasn't difficult for me to piece together that she was his personal travel companion. Armed with evidence, I confronted her. "Honey, we need to talk." To my surprise, she didn't deny a thing. She admitted to everything and more or less shrugged it off with an indifferent attitude. I'm not particularly quick-witted, so her reaction left me speechless. I had anticipated remorse and regret, but instead, I was met with indifference and impertinence. Our lives took a drastic turn in that moment. Initially, I was overwhelmed by grief and sorrow, the pain unbearable, but I held it inside, not saying a word to my daughters or anyone else. Rachel carried on as if nothing had changed, taking care of the house just as she always had. The only difference was that I now slept in the guest room. With Rachel never having worked, she spent all her spare time with her social circle. Despite living under the same roof, we felt more like siblings than spouses. Rachel's outings became more blatant. Pictures in newspapers and local magazines showed her and Kalev together as a couple, with no mention of me or our marriage. As time passed, my pain slowly turned into anger, and that anger grew until it became difficult to contain. I didn't turn to alcohol, I turned to the gym. I shed 46 pounds, getting into the best shape of my life. I no longer needed medication for blood pressure and cholesterol. Supper was the only meal I ate at home, but I easily adjusted to whatever Rachel cooked. But for every pound lost, I gained 10 pounds of bitterness. I was becoming a hateful, miserable person, even driving my friends and coworkers away. Then, I met Franklin. Franklin had been a regular at the gym for about 2 months before I even spoke to him. I usually kept to myself during workouts, rarely socializing. Occasionally, we would nod or exchange a quick fist bump. Franklin was different. Sometimes I caught him talking to himself. With earbuds in, you don't realize when you're singing along or speaking aloud. He noticed me smiling while he was musing one day, and from then on, we developed an easy, casual relationship. We began our workout routine on the treadmill together, gradually transitioning to the rowing machine. He matched my focus, and I found we shared the same drive. Our post-workout coffee sessions turned into occasional lunches, and having Franklin as a friend made everything easier. Finally, I had someone to vent to, but instead of calming me down, it only fueled my frustration. Franklin refused to run on the treadmill or run at all, despite being physically capable. Mentally, he chose not to. His wife, Sarah, was deeply into triathlons, having embarked on a fitness journey 5 years prior. She spent considerable time biking, swimming, and running, often participating in marathons and Ironman competitions, frequently with Kenny Walker, a renowned triathlete. Franklin discovered they were sharing more than just training sessions: transportation, accommodations, meals, and social gatherings. When confronted, Sarah's response was a dismissive "deal with it." Tensions peaked one evening over a rack of ribs, with Rachel in Washington, D.C. and Sarah in Hawaii for the Kona Ironman with Kenny. The ribs lacked the usual enjoyment without a cold beer, so we settled for unsweetened tea instead. "You know, Miles, we're quite the sorry pair of cucks," Franklin said, his tone devoid of humor, his expression somber. "Damn it, Franklin, I'm not a cuckold." "Oh, really? What do you call two guys who know their wives are cheating and just accept it?" I paused, mulling over his words, then motioned for the waitress. "Bring us a couple of long necks, please." "Franklin, I'm not a cuckold. I refuse to be one." "Prove it." "Miles, we're both miserable cucks who try to drown our sorrows in exercise until we're in pain. Do your daughters even know what's going on? When was the last time you talked to them? Does your wife even talk to your daughters? Thank goodness I don't have kids to worry about." I raised the cold Ewingling. "What do you suggest?" Franklin just shrugged and reached for another rib. I began the weekend as usual, with yard work. I had no idea when Rachel was due back, and honestly, I couldn't care less. I assumed she would be staying over the weekend. After a light lunch, I met Franklin at the gym. Sarah wouldn't be back for another 5 days. She fed Franklin some story about triathletes needing to decompress before flying, which he knew was mostly nonsense but didn't bother challenging. Our gym session ended abruptly. "I've had it. Damn it, I just can't and won't do this anymore," I exclaimed. Franklin grabbed his towel and headed for the showers. By the time I finished rowing, he was dressed and rushing out the door. He was right. We needed to do something. I spent all of Sunday planning, coming up with ideas and discarding them just as quickly. The best idea seemed to be to disappear altogether, but it left me feeling empty. I needed some form of revenge, but against whom? It had to be all of them. 4 different people had to be dealt with. Physically, I could never harm Rachel. It wasn't in my nature. I was pretty sure Franklin felt the same way about Sarah, but the 2 guys were a different story. Murder was out of the question, but how could I inflict meaningful pain upon them? Suddenly, everything became clear. I made a quick trip to the garage and found what I needed: a ball-peen hammer. Rachel came home Sunday evening, glowing. She unpacked, showered, and so on, but didn't share any details of her weekend with me. I didn't bring it up. After she went to bed, I stayed up to watch TV. "Miles, I refuse to do it. You're out of your mind. No matter how bad things are, I won't kill anyone." "No, Franklin, listen to me. We're not going to kill anybody. We're just going to slow them down a bit." "That's not what it sounds like. I've seen that movie, Strangers on a Train. Farley Granger and the other guy turn out to be killers. What you're suggesting is the same thing." "I won't do it, Miles. It was Farley Granger, not William Bendix, and we're not going to kill anybody." "Why are we even doing this, and what will it achieve?" "All right, Franklin, why is your wife so drawn to this guy? What does he have that you don't, that makes her want him?" "You know exactly what it is. He's a top-tier athlete. I can't compete with that. I'm just a forklift driver, and an overweight one at that." "So he's using his status as a world-class athlete to seduce and steal your wife. Do you think that's fair?" "No. Franklin, this guy thinks he's so superior that he can take any woman he wants. That's the ultimate disrespect, and you're just going to let him get away with it. Miles, I can't confront him. That's the point. You don't have to. I will. And what's the catch? Well, there's a world-famous piano virtuoso who might need some professional chiropractic treatment on his fingers. Can you handle that? It depends. Do I have to use a ball-peen hammer? Franklin, use anything you damn well please. So, we had a deal. Franklin was still a bit hesitant, so I suggested I deal with Kenny first to ease his nerves before he tackled Kalev. We spent another 2 hours over a rack of ribs, exchanging personal information. There were many gaps in our plan. The problem was, neither of us had a clue what we were doing or how to do it. Kenny posed the biggest challenge because of his physical prowess. I figured I needed some kind of equalizer. With this new project consuming me, I forgot all about my wife and her lover. I took 10 days of accrued vacation time, all aimed at Kenny Walker. It turned out to be much more intricate than I thought. He had a regular 9-to-5 job as an insurance adjuster, but his daily routine was far from simple. Some days he spent hours biking whenever he could find the time. Most mornings he jogged, and 3 evenings a week he swam laps at the local YMCA until the pool closed. On rainy days, he hit the gym. And of course, 2 or 3 times a week, he rendezvoused with Sarah at his apartment. While I was occupied tailing Kenny, Franklin was keeping tabs on Kalev. We regularly met at the gym to work out, but we never discussed our progress. We didn't even exchange phone numbers. That was part of the plan. The only connection we shared was being members of the same gym. Time was ticking away, and I needed to make some solid plans. Kenny used different bike routes all the time, and he never jogged the same course consistently. The best opportunity I could find was catching him at the YMCA after his swim. He always parked his car at the back of the building. I spent a considerable amount of time scouting for CCTV cameras. I found a few at the front and along the side, but none at the back. I discreetly acquired a taser from Craigslist, but I wasn't sure if it worked or how to test it. It was a risk I had to take. At least it came with an instruction manual. Feeling a bit bold, I splurged on a $10 balaclava. After about 30 minutes on the treadmill, chatting about trivial matters, I decided it was time to get down to business. Franklin, I think you need to take a 10-day vacation as soon as possible. I don't need to know where you're going, but you have to give me the dates. Wherever you go, use your credit cards a lot, I said. By the time we finished another 30 minutes on the Concept C2 rower, Franklin was beaming. Now I had to figure out where I was going to be during that time. The rain fell steadily, dampening everything in its path. It was nearing 10 o'clock, and Kenny Walker would soon arrive through the rear entrance of the YMCA. His Outback was the lone vehicle in the rear lot. I double-checked, finding no CCTV cameras in sight. Just in case, I donned a balaclava. Kenny was visibly annoyed at the sight of his flat tire. The taser did its job perfectly, and within 5 minutes, I was on my way home. The incident didn't make the morning paper, but the evening news mentioned a local man being assaulted and injured behind the YMCA the previous night. Plans were underway to install CCTV cameras in the area to prevent further incidents, though the nature of the injuries wasn't disclosed. There were no leads on suspects or motives. I had no clue about Franklin's whereabouts or return date. I disposed of the ball-peen hammer, taser, and balaclava in 3 different dumpsters downtown. My boss wasn't pleased when I informed him I'd be attending a 3-week Volvo Penta training course in Orlando. He failed to see how a marine engine course would benefit the company. I assured him I'd foot the bill and use my accrued vacation time, but he remained discontent. I left a note in Franklin's gym locker, explaining my absence until the end of June. Rachel, I have to head to Orlando for a 3-week training stint. Do you want to come with me, or would you rather stay home and relax? Miles, the summer concert season is in full swing, and you know how much I enjoy those park events. I'd really rather stay here. Besides, you'll be in class most of the time anyway, right? Yeah, it can get pretty muggy down there in the summer. I get it. I just wanted to check. Thanks, honey. I appreciate the offer, but I'll probably be more comfortable here. Maybe we can plan a short trip later in the summer, like a weekend getaway to New England or something. As expected, the conversation unfolded just as I thought it would. Now onto the next phase of the plan. There were no further updates about Kenny Walker. I departed at daybreak on Saturday, aiming for a 2-day journey to Orlando, with a planned stop at the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga. It's essential to keep our priorities straight. Fortunately, the school had arrangements for long-term rentals with light cooking facilities, so I wouldn't have to eat out every day. I called Rachel to let her know I arrived safely. The local newspaper charged $1 a month for online access, which I took care of as soon as I settled in. Starting tomorrow, I'd meticulously check all the news from home, especially the police reports. I was eager to see if Franklin would hold up his end of the agreement, and whether he faced any repercussions from the police regarding the Walker incident. There was a Planet Fitness less than a mile away, and I made use of my guest privilege card. The first week of my vacation was dull, but the second week brought some interesting events, and the third week was fantastic. Of course, I'm not referring to my school training, which was excellent. I read the entire paper daily, searching for anything of interest. There was a concert at the Brandywine Battlefield site, organized by my wife's lover. I'm sure she enjoyed that little outing. Towards the end of the following week, there was a front-page article about the brutal attack on Caleb Jurison, a local university professor and symphony orchestra director. The police suspected it was some kind of professional vendetta, as the only injuries he sustained were to his hands. Although it was compared to the recent attack on Kenny Walker, they couldn't establish a direct link. There were no suspects at the time. I spent the rest of the evening contemplating with a 6-pack of black and tan, trying to unravel where, when, and how Franklin pulled it off. I didn't really want to know, but it was amusing to speculate. The next morning, a Volvo Penta school administrator informed me that an official from Pennsylvania had called to confirm my attendance, and that I hadn't missed any classes. I wouldn't have expected any less. I wondered when my wife would mention it to me. I hadn't heard from her in a few days. In anticipation of her call, I bought another 6-pack, but the call never came. The final week of training turned out to be the highlight. We had half a day of interviews with potential employers, which was a pleasant surprise. Any offer would have been welcome to me. My age, experience, and willingness to relocate gave me a bit of an edge over most of the other students. I received the offer I wanted, making my decision easy. I decided to make a short stop on my way home to check it out. There were no further articles in the newspaper about the mysterious attacks, and Rachel never called again. The Perdido Bay Marina was technically in Alabama, but you would see Florida across the water. Thomas Coleman eagerly showed me around his pride and joy. In addition to overhauls and repairs, they had a large multi-level storage facility. Interspersed with the dock spaces were half a dozen liveaboards. The highlight was a small mobile home at the back of the lot, which he offered for my use. I asked him about the storage facility, which he said was popular with snowbirds. After explaining its operation, he jokingly asked if I had any forklift experience. Immediately, Franklin came to mind. Returning home was somewhat underwhelming. I received a quick hug and a kiss on the cheek from my wife, Rachel. I tried to start some light conversation, but Rachel only responded with small talk. She didn't mention Caleb at all. I didn't press the issue, but I couldn't help but smile to myself. After showering and changing, we enjoyed a light meal. Despite being away for 25 days, it felt like I had never left. I was looking forward to hitting the gym in the morning. Franklin was already there when I arrived. "Morning, Franklin." "Morning, Miles." We worked out for about 20 minutes without saying a word, which felt a bit odd. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Coffee, Franklin." "Damn. I thought you'd never ask." We didn't even bother showering or changing. We just grabbed our stuff and went across the street to Mickey D's. "So, Miles, how's everything on your end?" "Quiet. It's like I never left. If I hadn't read about what happened in the paper, I wouldn't have known anything." "How about you?" "Just the opposite. Sarah's furious and taking it out on me. The police cleared me completely, but she's convinced I had something to do with his attack. She's spending more time at his place playing nurse than at home. She even stayed over a couple of nights. In a way, it's sort of relaxing. I enjoy my time away from her more than with her. You did a pretty good job on him. His triathlon days are over. I wasn't sure. I never read anything about his injuries. Did the police hassle you? Oh, yeah. They checked my phone records and bank accounts, trying to connect me to his attack. After about a week, they gave up. Sarah was the one pushing to have me charged. Just curious, where did you go? I was on a Windjammer cruise out of Rockland, Maine. Had a blast. Good for you. I was stuck in a classroom for 8 hours a day for 3 weeks. Now what, Miles? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm out of here. I've got a job near Pensacola lined up, and I'm leaving at the end of the week. Are you divorcing her? Nope, I'm just taking off. If she wants a divorce, she can file for it. I'm curious to see if good old Kalev will step up and take her in, or if he'll dump her. What about your house and stuff? I'm leaving her everything except the money in the bank. She gets the mortgage, car payments, utility bills, and her Kohl's credit card. Gives me something to think about. You'll let me know where you end up, right? Sure. By the way, did Kalev give you any trouble? Not really. I sprayed the garage cameras with wasp spray the day before and used a meat mallet from the kitchen to finish the job. One quick hit to the head and then a half-dozen smashes on each hand. I made sure to get both of his thumbs. He never saw me. He was still out when I left. Rachel wasn't home when I returned from the gym. I took a quick shower and headed into work. My boss wasn't happy when I gave my notice. I emptied all the bank accounts, except for a few $100s, and closed out the credit cards. We usually kept a zero balance on the cards. After another quiet dinner with my wife, I grabbed a beer and headed for the den. I dug out my passport, birth certificate, and my DD-214. There was nothing else I wanted to take with me. My tools from work were in the back of the Subaru. The only thing left to get was some clothes and my laptop. Rachel was cordial, but still very quiet and reserved. She left early the next morning without telling me where she was going. She stopped giving me updates on her whereabouts over a year ago. I guess she felt I didn't need to know. It took me less than 30 minutes to load the Outback. At the last minute, I grabbed the Samuel Campbell. It just seemed like a good idea. I was on US 81 just outside of Luray when I decided to let Franklin know that I left. It was a short text message. Perdido Bay Marina. Whatever he decided to do was fine with me. It only took me a few weeks to get settled in. My cell was turned off the entire time. The work was different, but the same, if that makes any sense. Most of my spare time was spent getting the trailer livable. Everything worked okay, but it did need a bit of love and attention. The second bedroom became a junk catching area. There was a small diner about a quarter mile down the road from the marina that was open 24/7. I found myself eating most of my meals there. Unfortunately, the closest gym was 7 miles away, so I decided to take up jogging. I didn't like it, but I did it anyhow. At least there were no hills. And then my first guest arrived. Franklin, you found it. Not too hard, Miles. The GPS brought me right to it. Darren's your uncle. Who in the world is Darren? I wondered. Are you just passing through or are you staying? Staying, if you've got room. Nothing to go back to. We spent about an hour getting Franklin set up in the second bedroom, then grabbed some supper at the diner. Franklin had driven straight through 16 hours and was dead tired. I let him sleep in the next morning. Thomas Coleman hired Franklin on the spot. He hated using the forklifts and was more than happy to turn it over. The pay wasn't great, but Franklin didn't seem to mind. He just wanted enough to get by. He did have a stash of cash that he brought with him. I took him to Foley later to get a safety deposit box at the same bank that I used. The trailer wasn't that secure. Sarah had kept insisting to the police that Franklin was responsible for the attack on Kenny Walker. They couldn't prove anything. His alibi in Maine was rock solid, and they could find no accomplices. Naturally, the relationship between the two of them went downhill fast. Sarah demanded that Franklin get out of the house, but he refused. She finally moved in with Walker, and 2 days later, Franklin made his break. I decided it was time to reach out to my daughters. My first call was to my eldest, Joyce. As soon as I said hello, she hung up. Kelly, my youngest, was a bit more open. She called me an inconsiderate bastard before hanging up. My attempt failed miserably, but at least I won't be stuck with 2 expensive weddings down the line. I turned my cell back off. Franklin and I quickly settled into a routine. Every morning, I jogged about 5 miles, then we met at the diner for breakfast. They made a nice little low-carb breakfast bowl just for me. We caught lunch when it was convenient. A couple of weeks later, things changed. Linda Adams had been living in a Nordic tug in Slip 16 for the past 6 months. She had no land transportation to speak of, so Franklin was more than happy to offer her a lift when she had to go someplace. I soon lost my dinner companion, and shortly thereafter, my breakfast partner. It was only a short time later when the second bedroom in the trailer became a junk room again. Franklin was happy, and I was happy for him. Every time I tried to talk to him about her, he became evasive. Thomas Coleman wasn't much help either. He was just pleased that she paid her dock fees and utilities on time. She never asked for any type of special treatment. Something was going on, but as long as Franklin was happy, I would keep my nose out of it. I seemed to lose track of time. It had been almost a year since I left. I had no contact with my wife, my daughters, or anyone else from home. Occasionally, Franklin, Linda, and I would go out for supper, and we always had a good time. I was able to figure out that Linda was from Ohio, a military wife with no children. She never mentioned her husband, and I was not about to ask. Linda always wanted to go to Foley or Gulf Shores to eat but refused to go to Pensacola. It was an odd quirk, but I accepted it. It was a rainy Monday morning when things came to a head. Instead of my usual jog, I put on my old army poncho and lumbered over to the diner. I was just finishing up my second cup of coffee when I saw a familiar car pull into the marina. It was the green Subaru Outback that belonged to Kenny Walker. A woman who appeared to be Sarah got out, opened an umbrella, and dashed for the marina office. A minute later, she opened the door and waved to the driver. Kenny got out and limped into the office, trying unsuccessfully to dodge the raindrops. "Damn it, Franklin. Answer your phone." Finally, I got a response. "Franklin, you've got a problem. How soon can you cast off and get the hell out of here?" "What the hell are you talking about? Slow down. Your wife is here, and Kenny Walker is with her. They are in the office talking to Thomas right now. It's your choice. You can speak with her, or you can quietly sneak away. I think the rain would give you pretty good cover. Miles, it's going to take me at least 15 or 20 minutes. Can you delay them a bit?" "I'll try. Get your butt moving." My next call was to Thomas. He chuckled slightly as he agreed to redirect the interlopers to my trailer instead of Linda's slip. I arrived back at the trailer just as they were leaving the office. Naturally, I invited them in and did my best to prolong the interaction. I engaged in casual conversation with a man whom I had attacked less than a year ago, leaving him maimed and crippled, hoping my newly acquired facial hair would shield my identity. They never mentioned why they were there or their search for Franklin, and I didn't inquire. The rain had eased to a gray drizzle as we strolled to the docks. The tugboat was barely visible across the bay through the mist, but I was the only one paying attention. They were fixated on the empty slip. 5 minutes later, the ship had vanished completely. I never disclosed my identity or explained my connection to Franklin. They didn't inquire. I made an excuse to return to work, and shortly after, they left. That was the last time I saw Franklin. A few months later, Phil Adams, Linda's brother-in-law, paid us a visit. He was searching for Wayne, Linda's husband, with whom he hadn't been in contact for over a year. Wayne and Linda were living at the Blackwater Bay Marina in Pensacola. There had been several reports of domestic disturbances involving the couple filed with the Escambia County Sheriff's Department, but then they abruptly ceased. Despite this, Wayne's retirement checks from the U.S. Air Force were still being cashed. Nobody had seen Wayne or Linda for over a year. How Phil tracked Linda down to the marina was a mystery to me. Perhaps it was just a lucky guess. Another 6 months went by, and I found myself missing Franklin. While work remained steady, I was growing tired of it. In the evenings, I would sit with my black and tan, pondering whether I should seek companionship or perhaps relocate. I wasn't keen on the bar scene, and church wasn't my thing. The gym was inconvenient, and none of the waitresses at the diner caught my interest enough to consider dating. Finally, I decided to reach out to Volvo Penta again. They had two promising job openings, one in Biloxi and the other in Galveston. I couldn't make up my mind between the two. During lunch, as I was grappling with my decision, I was rudely interrupted. "Hello, Miles. You're a hard man to find." Rachel looked worn out, aged by the hardships of the last 2 years. "Sorry, I wasn't hiding." "What brings you here?" I replied, surprised. She slid an envelope across the table. "Your final divorce papers. I thought you might want them. I filed for abandonment after a year. If you knew where I was, why drive down here? You could have just mailed them." "I don't know. Closure, I guess. You screwed me over bad, but I guess I deserved it." "That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to get away so you could be with Kalev. I felt like I was holding you back." "Well, you didn't leave me with much. No money and an over-mortgaged house that the bank ended up taking. What really pissed me off is that you took the Samuel Campbell. I figured your lover could take up the slack. Where is he, by the way?" Things didn't go well for Kalev after his accident. He went back to Estonia about 6 months ago. "You didn't go with him?" "I wasn't invited." I didn't respond. Kalev was a bit bitter. He felt that you had something to do with his attack. Things seemed to cool between us after that. "Now what?" "Joyce got married last June and they relocated to Ocala. I'm going to move in with them and play grandmom. I decided to take a short detour on the way to deliver your papers." Silly me. I sat there like a fool waiting for some sort of apology, but none came. It was as if she was still rubbing it in my face after all that time. There was no remorse or regret on her part. "Well, Rachel, I'm glad you stopped by. I'm sorry I missed Joyce's wedding, but she didn't seem to want me there anyhow. I'm also sorry things didn't work out with you and Kalev. I know how important that was to you. Is there anything else before you go?" "Yes, I want the Samuel Campbell." I settled on Biloxi. It's just a 2-hour drive. The casino seemed like a blast. I handed over the Samuel Campbell, annoyed. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.